Hey, JK here. I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Hello ladies and gentlemen, we just finished filming the football video talking about the last 2 weeks, and now we're filming the baseball video talking about the last 3 weeks because there's been that much of a gap. Last time you heard, I'd either made the playoffs or just missed the playoffs, or we're fighting for contention to be reseeded in the playoffs. Well, I'm here to update you. There are some surprises, there's some things that we expected, and then there were some big moves that we made happen. We're going to go ahead and talk about the Cheese Weasels. Unfortunately, this year we finished in 4th place with 109.5 points. Somehow, during the last week, all of our offensive categories were full. I say full because it says I had reached the max number of games started for each position, so I don't even know what that means, but nothing accumulated offensively for us the entire last week. Now, pitching-wise, we were doing okay. We had the most wins, strikeouts, and saves, so that bumped up our scoring a little bit, but we were very mediocre at best when it comes to the hitting. We were as low as 8th out of 10 when it comes to on-base plus slugging. We were as high as 2nd when it comes to steals. So, very meh and mid AF when it comes to offensive stats. I have to look forward to next year is the fact that some of our keepers do include Yordan Alvarez, Christian Yelich. Hopefully he's going to be healthy. Pitchers coming back even healthier. Spencer Strider, Tyler Glasnow, and we also have Paul Skeens. We also have Aaron Nola, but I feel like he's such a mixed bag. Like, you can always count on him to do well, but he has clunkers. I mean, everyone has clunkers. But in any case, 109.5 points, 4th place, not the worst, not the best. And now we're going to move to the Russell Matt Jim Jams team, where this was an overall disappointing year, but we were in the playoffs, the Dignity playoffs, these last 3 weeks. Round 1, we won. Week 23, we were able to win 9 categories to 5 categories to 2 categories. Week 24, we won again. 10 categories to 3 categories to 3 categories. Week 25, we lost. 11 to 3 to 2. But it's all good. We were close. We were within 6 of runs, hits, RBIs, extra base hits, steals, strikeouts, wins, stuff like that. We were close. I mean, close but no cigar. Over the last few weeks, I've been looking at the waiver wire, picking up a few of the guys that I think will be helpful to us next year, and we were able to pick up Otto Lopez, Ronaldo Lopez, and Wilson Contreras. All 3 of those guys will likely end up being keepers for me, and hopefully they will contribute to my team next year in ways that will help me become better than 8th place at 138 wins, 177 losses, and 53 ties. The next team we're talking about is the South Harmon Institute of Technology. Now, last you heard, I lost getting into the playoffs to 2 teams by half a game. I had more wins than both of those teams. I also had a better record overall than the team in the other division. So I was extremely upset that I did not get into the playoffs. So much so that I wanted to make sure I won both of the matchups in the playoffs. I know it doesn't really mean anything, but for the sake of the conversation, I wanted to make sure I won. And we did. Week 1, we won very convincingly, 13 to 3 to 2. And I looked at my stats. I looked at the stats of the 2 guys that beat me by half a point. I had better stats than both of them. I also had better stats than the guy on the other side of the division who got in with a lesser record than me. I also had better stats than the 4th person who was number 1 in the league. So I had better stats than everyone else in the playoffs. I am so upset. The guy that was number 1 in the league is the same guy that was number 1 in the league last year, and he beat me in the championship round because we were tied. Tie goes to the top seed. I don't like that. I think you should go to the lower seed because you're top seed. You should win. However, this year he went to the championship again, and he lost by it was 13 to 3 to 2. It was similar to my score. I was so happy. Week 2, not as convincing for us. We won 8 to 5 to 5. Again, it doesn't really matter much, but hey, I'm glad we were winning. Similar to other leagues, we were looking at the waiver wire over the last few weeks. We were able to pick up Ronaldo Lopez and CJ Abrams. Super pumped about those 2 guys. Again, they will likely be keepers for me and hopefully contribute to my team next year as we get back to the ship. Well, first of all, we got to get into the playoffs, then get to the ship, and then win it. And the last team we were talking about with no playoff implications, the Kent Murphy Dingers. Week 23, we were snoozing and cruising. We had a bye week, no game. Week 24, we were playing the 8th place team that hadn't done well all year. We beat them 5-4, so that was good. So we moved up to 8th place. They moved back to 9th place. Week 25, we lost 3 categories to 7 categories. We were close in runs, home runs, RBIs, wins, and strikeouts, but, close doesn't get you a win, okay? It wasn't the worst thing in the world. Again, we were playing for anything other than dignity and maybe a different drafting spot. So I finished with a 6-14-2 record and in 8th place. Over the last few weeks, I've been looking at the waiver wire, and I feel like I've made some good selections in order to have some trade bait going into next year. I was able to pick up Kodai Senga, who is a 17th round keeper, coming off a phenomenal season with the Mets. His rookie year, did have a little trouble this year. Obviously, was only able to pitch 1 game for 5 in the 3rd innings. But hey, if he's going to be healthy going into the playoffs, shows you a little something there. 17th round for one of the top pitchers in the league, 2 years ago. I'll take that. Also, Nick Pivetta, 21st round keeper. Whoo! 2 great pitchers under the 17th round. I will be happy with both of those guys. But I'm not done. I did also pick up Xander Bogaerts. Now, I know he's not a pitcher, and he may not be the sexiest name, but the Padres aren't terrible. And remember, any of the stats that Xander has, he missed a ton of year because of injury. So, it's not the sexiest keeper like I talked about before, but could get someone else interested, especially if they need a shortstop. I also have Luis Rengifo in round 23. So, utility guy. If he can come back from that wrist injury and show some stuff in spring training, that'll be someone who will absolutely draw some interest. Now we get to the teams that were in the playoffs, on the way to semifinals and our finals. We're going to start with the Fantrax League and the Funky Junky Joker Monkeys. Week 24 was a 1-week playoff against the number 1 team in the league. We had split 2 games before that. I'd won one, he won the other, which is what split means. And this was a big game. This was to get to the championship. I'm happy to say we won 484 to 434. Huge game from Christopher Sanchez with 38 points. Luckily, we didn't need Jake Flaherty because he only got me 3 points. Now, the person I was playing for the championship was the winner of the Western Division. So, I had a better record than him, and he, I guess you could say, had an easier pathway to the championship because I had to face someone for the quarterfinals. I had to face the number 1 guy for the semifinals, and I was facing this guy. Nothing against him, but it is what it is. We split the season series, and I'm looking forward to this throughout the week. And I'm thinking, who can I add to get me a good play early on? Well, I added Reed Detmers. Dude, you're going against the Chicago White Sox. You got 8 points. God, that killed me. And then 2 of my biggest bats came up very short. Carlos Santana had 29 at-bats, got me 0 points. Salvador Perez had 24 at-bats, got me 4.5 points. And the guy who absolutely came up the smallest in the biggest situation was Pablo Lopez. Sunday, the final day of scoring, you're going against the Boston Red Sox, and you got me 3.5 points. Frustrating, man. You're averaging like 20-plus points a game, and you got me 3.5. Now, there were some guys who came up huge for me. Jake Burger got me 31, and then 27 points each from Joe Musgrove and Ezekiel Tovar. Huge games from them. However, it was not enough. I lost 489 to 456. Now, there was some confusion and some frustration that goes into this because, according to Fantrax rules, if you do not meet the maximum, which we established at 13 starts per week, all of the points accumulated that day, so on Sunday, if you had not maxed out at the 13 starts by then, all the points would count. So I'm thinking, I'm going to just add all the pitchers for Sunday and start them. Going into Sunday, I was down 17 points. A lot of that came from the lack of production from Carlos Santana, Jock Peterson, Jake McCarthy, all those guys. However, I still had this silver lining. I could start all these pitchers. Well, someone saw it and they're like, hey man, you can't do that. And so I pointed out, highlighted it. They said, hey, we established the rules, only 13 starts. I said, Well, how come no one has been penalized for this? And that's when it's different for the playoffs. It wouldn't have made a difference in the regular season. Now, apparently, I had more starts than the 13 during 1 week. But I don't think I did. Because one of my guys was a bulk reliever. So, in any case, if I did, so be it. That's fine. I should have lost points. But the excuse was that it wouldn't have mattered. Well, if you're not going to enforce the rules during the year, why enforce them during the playoffs? So, that's my frustration. It is what it is. Just another shortcoming of mine in this league. I could have, should have won, but it just comes down to I did not start the right players, even though I was going to abide by the rules of Fantrax and go with rules that had not been administered or regulated the entire season. So it's very frustrating. I do have a few guys I'm looking forward to keeping for next year. And just think, I did all this without Ronald Acuna. So it'll be nice to get him back next year. And the last thing we were talking about, Peach Creek Purgatory. Now, if you remember, I took over this league last year. They were the worst team in the league. And now I'm heading into the playoffs, and I'm doing well. Each playoff round is 2 weeks. I get 24 starts over these 2 week span, and as the number 3 seed, I have to face off against the number 2 seed. He's one of the highest scorers in the league and won the league last year, so he knows what it takes to be a fantasy baseball champion, especially in this league in particular. So, again, being smart with my starts includes looking at bulk pitchers, looking at relievers who are going to do well for me, and looking at the best matchups. So, my first week, I ended up with Louis Varland getting me -14, Miles Mikolas getting me -9, Marcus Stroman getting me -3, and Clay Holmes getting me -1. Oh, this is not going to be good, is it? Golly, I'm going to screw my chance up to get to the championship, right? Figures. This is what's going to happen. I am not going to screw up because my team came up huge for me. I won 1,868 to 1,683. Huge. At one point in time, I was down by 250 points in this league. Obviously, I definitely made up for it, winning by almost 200 points. Huge win for me. Super stoked by what my team was doing, especially as Eugenio Suarez. Got me 131 points. Followed by Brent Rooker with 115 and Taylor Ward with 108. Unfortunately, we did lose Corey Seager for the rest of the year. That is very unfortunate, actually. He was a big bopper in my lineup. Hopefully, he comes back healthy next year, as we do have keepers, and he's definitely one of them. We also had very poor performances like we talked about before. Louis Varland, Miles Mikolas, Clay Holmes definitely didn't do anything for me. But we also burned starts on Marcus Stroman, who got me -3, Joey Estes, who got me 5, and Luis Ortiz, who only got me 6. Not the worst thing in the world. I mean, obviously we had a pretty big cushion, but I really don't want the negative points, especially when we are in the midst of a championship race. So now we're going into a 2-week championship series where I'm facing the number 1 guy in the league. Top scorer, top record. We have 24 starts, well 26 because of the games added on the 30th between the Mets and the Braves. But we have to make our very best starts. I have to make my very best starts. I already have one of the best teams in the league. This guy also has one of the best teams in the league, and it's going to be a dogfight. And I was absolutely prepared to use bulk relievers, relief pitchers, all 24 or 26 of my starts. And it was going to come down to the last day. But it didn't. Because on Wednesday, I took a commanding lead. And I did not look back. I ended up winning 1,769 to 1,533. There were only 2 days, 3 days maybe, he scored more than me. I made sure there was no question. At one point in time, I led by over 300 points. I did not want to let this one get away. Our highest scorer was Trey Turner with a 112, followed by Ketel Marte with 111, and Matt Olson with 108. We also had guys that did not fare as well. Andrew Haney, you got me -3. Marcus Stroman, you got me -11. JoJo Romero, you got me -15. And Joey Estes, you got me negative 18. Thankfully, I didn't need y'all, guys. Thankfully, I did not need y'all to score points for me, because I would have been infuriated had y'all lost me those points and lost me the game. This was what I like to call my worst to first arc. I was the worst team in the league last year. I took it over with like 2 weeks left in the regular season, and I brought this team back with the number one pick. We picked Yoshinobu, and we have come through. We lost Seager. We lost Acuna. We lost Riley. We made some big trades. We absolutely turned this team around, and I could not be happier. So again, I want to thank you for listening to me, for being part of this. We've brought one championship to this channel. We should have brought one last year, but Ty goes to the higher seed. We should have brought two this year, but people want to not follow rules when there have been rules in place the whole season, but they haven't been enforced. And now it's championship time, and no one wants to get their feelings hurt because they didn't follow the rules and didn't do what was right throughout the whole season. But it is what it is. We have one championship, and we're going to build off that. I look forward to seeing you again next year as we go through the drafts, as we go through the keepers, as we go through the waiver wires, as we look at some trade bait. I'm looking forward to bringing you more information throughout the offseason, and more importantly, getting to Major League Baseball next year when we have even bigger plans to have a repeat. Who knows? This is Jake, and I sincerely want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.